Hello everyone! My name is Robin and I am the Tired Witch. Welcome to my channel. I wish I could say that the tea is piping hot today, but this is lukewarm tea. Today, I thought we could hang out and we could talk about the things that I wish that I knew when I first started witchcraft that I know now, that I think people should, I don't know, not know, but should kind of take into consideration when it comes to magic, especially in the age of social media. So my first bit of advice to new practitioners is that witchcraft is a craft. It is a practice. It is not a race. I know that, at least for me, especially 1,000,000 years ago, this is the part where my husband edits where it says that I'm old as hell above my head again. But for me personally, when I first started, I know that I got very overwhelmed with information and wanting to basically know everything and do everything all at once. And I thought that I had to do everything and know everything perfectly. And social media obviously wasn't what it is today back 20 years ago. Again, old as hell edit. I know it's coming. But social media wasn't what it is today. And I had to do things like read books. And obviously, of course, I'm not saying that people don't read books now. I'm not trying to imply that. But as a, 15-year-old, I was running to my local library and I was borrowing 20 books at a time. Like, even today, we all have that book stack that we are working our way through and end up buying another book before we finish it. Everybody's got it. Don't pretend that you don't. But I know that I got really overwhelmed then. And I know that in the age of social media, it's so easy to compare yourself to someone else who started at a similar time than you and maybe is doing more things or has a bigger altar or has found what deities they're going to work with or freaking whatever. And I just really want to encourage you to remember that witchcraft is a craft. It is a practice. It is something that we are taking on as a lifelong journey and shouldn't be something that you think you have to perfect in a week or a year. Everybody's going at their own pace and your pace is perfectly fine. So if I could tell younger me that, I would. Now, bouncing off that idea, focusing on a singular topic at a time is perfectly acceptable. Like I said, I got overwhelmed super easy and thought I had to do everything. And in reality, instead of doing 50 different little things at once, trying to learn and focusing on one thing or even two things that I really wanted to work on at a time is something that I would go back and tell my younger self to do. You don't have to be juggling 60 different topics at once. And it's okay to put some aspects of your practice on like a lesser important totem pole while you focus on another one. Again, it's a craft. It is something that you are building and focusing on and growing with for life. And maybe you need to put some things on the back burner for a little bit so that way you can explore and grow in other fields and facets of your craft. And there's nothing wrong with that. The other thing that I wish I did more of when I was younger, I know that I've done a Book of Shadows and Grimoire video here, and we saw a composition notebook from when I was in high school. But like aside from that, I wish I took more notes when I was younger, and not just notes on like books I was reading or classes I took or spells that I did, but even just notes on things that I found quite trivial at the time. a huge part of my practice that has grown over the years is that I journal every single day and I write down things that may or may not be important. Most of the time it's dreams that I have, or thoughts that I have woken up with, or even a tarot card of the day that maybe is an energy I need to take with me for the day or the week or the month, depending on the card, of course. But a huge part of my practice is learning, or that has grown in my practice, is learning to write down every single thing, even if it doesn't seem that important. Because what I have found is later down the line, a week, a month, a year, why I wrote that down or why that was really important to me might become far more obvious and notable. And if I could go back in time and tell younger me anything, it would be to write down everything. Not just the stuff that I think is important, but stuff that might not be that important, but it becomes more apparent as to why it was important later on. And I think that that is something I really wish I'd known earlier on. The other thing the next thing I guess that I would tell young me if I could go back in time is that not everything is in a book. I know that we talk a lot about citing sources, especially again in the era of social media. We talk about citing sources and how important that is, and I think that's amazing. But simultaneously, a lot of things are lived experiences, not read experiences. And there is nothing wrong with learning from books. I am a huge advocate for pagan and occult books. I'm constantly sharing them and reading them myself, and I've learned probably a lot, most of my practice, I would say 60% from reading about stuff and then going out and trying it. But then there's that other 40%, right? That comes from trial and error. That comes from doing stuff that, maybe some correspondence worked really, really well for somebody else that just did not work for me, and how I had to adapt and adjust. These are lived experiences, and part of witchcraft is that practice of trying things and making it work and seeing what works for you, what vibes for you, and the growth that comes with that. Witchcraft is a craft. It is a lived experience. And reading is amazing, but there is a big difference between somebody who knows a lot about witchcraft and somebody who's done a lot of witchcraft. So yeah, if I could just go back and remember, I don't have to exactly follow things how somebody else did it, but instead use it as a source of inspiration or even a launching point for myself that will grow in time. I think that's a really important lesson that a lot of us struggle with. I know I struggle with it sometimes, especially if I'm getting a spell from somebody I really respect. That I think, well, I respect this practitioner. I better not screw this up. I better not do this wrong. When in reality, what works for them is not always going to work for me. And that is okay. That doesn't make me weak. That doesn't mean that I've done it wrong. It just means that we're two different people with two different lived experiences. And that's an important thing to take into consideration. Now, probably the most important thing that I've learned in my practice is more things do not equal better magic. Stuff is great. Stuff is useful. Tools are tools, right? They're incredible. But simultaneously, if we take the idea of tools and let's say we apply it to something very mundane like a hammer, right? Different tools have different jobs, and different tools have people have different preferences. If you took a rock and you tied it to a stick, it might work just as well for the job as a $60 hammer. I'm obviously not a carpenter. I'm not a manual labor person, as I'm sure is very obvious. I'm by my nails. So this might be a very shitty metaphor, but what I am trying to say is that sometimes the best tools are found. Sometimes the best tools are within ourselves. If they have the same job's purpose and they serve better for you, that doesn't make it any less valid. Simultaneously, you can buy a whole bunch of stuff, and if you're not using the stuff, doesn't really equate to anything. It's just decor. And decor is great, and there's nothing wrong with that. But more stuff does not equal better magic. And I think that the lesson that I still work on to this day, and the parting lesson that I'm going to leave with you, is that other people's opinions of me are not my business. Realistically, especially in a position like I'm in, where I do share large parts of my practice on social media, what works for me, and it makes me happy and content. It fulfills all the needs that I ask for in witchcraft, which is not some sort of self-inflating affirmation, but rather I never go without with the things that I require in witchcraft. It works for me. That might not work for somebody else, and somebody else's opinion of that really isn't my problem or business, because their craft is theirs, my craft is mine, and we are going to do things different. When you consider the hundreds of traditions, and even within those traditions, you have just personal bias, personal experience, like we talked about previously, with things like living in different land spaces and the energies that come with that. Everybody's going to have a different situation, a different experience, and their opinions are not my problem. This is something that I still work on today, obviously, especially, like I said, in the position where I am on social media. And people have opinions, but you know what that expression is? Opinions are like assholes. My point is that using other people's practices as inspiration perhaps is incredible, but everybody's craft and practice is different. Everybody's life is different, and the experiences that they have had and what is working for that person is incredible and great, and I'm very happy for them. But what's working for me is what's working for me. And I think that the sooner that we all kind of embrace this mentality, individually we will grow. I know it's helping me grow as an individual, and it's making me very happy and a lot stronger. So with that being said, I hope that you all have grown and will continue to grow throughout your practice. And I'd love to hear something that you wish you knew earlier on in the comments. That way we can help each other to do that growing. So have a great day.